guys! So in today's video I am going to be starting a new sketchbook. So I have been on my old sketchbook for quite a long time now. I haven't quite finished it, I've got a few pages left, but I think it's just gotten to the point where I should just stop using it because I'm not really a fan of the art in it anymore. It's just not work I like that much. There's a lot of empty spaces and gaps that I could have filled in and done something with. There's just a lot I wish I had done more to with it. So I think I'm just going to start again, start fresh, and hopefully that will help me paint more in my sketchbook rather than just on my iPad. Because one of the things I was feeling with my old sketchbook was just the fact of, you know, I don't like anything in it, I don't want to paint in it, it's just not a good sketchbook. So started again, and hopefully this time I will finish it. I have actually finished a sketchbook before. I did a sketchbook tour of that if you want to go and check that out. It is on my channel. I don't think I'm going to be doing a sketchbook tour of my old sketchbook. I will probably make one for my Patreons. If you want to go and join my Patreon, the link is below in the description. But it's just not something I really want to put on my main channel, if that makes sense. But I'm happy to share it to my patrons as kind of a behind the scenes piece of work for them to see what I have done, and I can go through my feelings a bit more openly there. But it's not something I really want to share here, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure how many illustrations I'm going to do in this book. I think I'm going to do a few, but I'm going to start off by doing an Animal Crossing house because the game has just been out for 1 year, so I thought it'd be fun to do something for that. I did already do my island tour, but you know, I'm in an Animal Crossing mood at the moment, so I want to paint my house using Posca markers and gouache and maybe a bit of coloured pencils in there. We'll see how it goes. I'm just kind of experimenting and playing around with it. My Posca markers are brand new though, most of them anyway. I got them for Christmas, so I do need to set them up. So I'm going to do that first because that's going to take a while. So I wanted my illustrations to have really nice straight borders, so I'm just putting down some washi tape to make sure that happens. I find that washi tape can be really good at creating really nice borders, though obviously it's a little bit of a struggle to make sure the washi tape is straight, but I hope I did a good enough job. So I just started by painting the background of this piece with acrylic gouache. I'm just using this nice pink colour. I think it's a really nice pink. I don't know why, but I think this is probably one of my favourite gouache pinks that I've got. It's from their Turner Acrylics pastel collection of paints. It's just a really nice kind of soft but warm and bright pink colour, and I think it looks good with so many different colours, which is really important for me for this piece, especially because I really want the colours to work well together and I want to use a limited palette, which is something I actually kind of have to do with Posca pens because I don't have that many of them and you obviously can't mix the colours. So, you know, I want to make sure that this colour will work well with all the other colours that I've picked, and I believe it does in the end. So as you can see here, I've started with this kind of turquoisey colour, which works really well with the pink, and it matches the washi tape as well. So the one thing I have with my Posca markers is that I have a lot of different sizes of them. Obviously they come in lots of different sizes and you can get them all in the same colours, but I have quite a mixture of different sizes and different colours, which kind of was a little bit annoying for this. So for some of the bigger pens, I needed them to be smaller for like little bits of detail, so I had to be really careful with them. And then for some of the smaller pens, I had to colour in big details, and that was a bit more of a pain because that took a little bit longer. But you know, I did get there in the end. So for this sketch, for the illustration, I wanted to make it kind of a fun piece that was inspired by Animal Crossing, but you know, you might not necessarily recognize it as Animal Crossing unless you know the game. So I've obviously included the design of a house, and there are balloons that you can get in Animal Crossing that can kind of look like these ones, but they're not exactly the same. You can't get them in these colors. And I did kind of play around with the colours of the house a little bit to match the Posca markers pens I had, so it all worked well together, but also didn't look like it was straight from the game, if that makes sense, if you didn't know what the game was. I also did this little floating island idea, as I kind of wanted to keep a lot of the area around the house pink. I wanted to be able to see a background, and I wanted it to be floating, so I thought the idea of the balloons floating around the house would work really well, and it would fill a little bit more of the space and add a lot more colour to the piece. As you might be able to tell, I am using the darker and lighter shades of the same colours, so I'm using this darker turquoisey colour and then the lighter turquoisey colour to kind of complement each other, and I'm kind of alternating which one I use. So the little bits at the end of the balloon I'll do with the darker or lighter pen, if that makes sense, just to, you know, keep the colours all in kind of some kind of order, you know, make it kind of all come together and work well together, if that makes sense. I made sure that I didn't have two of the same colours touching each other. I didn't want it to seem too crowded, and thankfully it worked out just as I had planned. I was a little bit worried that maybe I hadn't got enough colours, but 4 colours was perfect to do this, and you know, overall I did manage to spread the colours out very well, and I'm happy with how it looks. I also tried to make sure that I didn't have, like, you know, 2 bunny balloons that were the same colour as well, so I kind of kept everything individual, a bit more unique, so everything was a little bit separated, except the normal balloons. I did have several of the same colours of them, but obviously they're normal balloons, so I don't really think that's as much of an issue. So as you can see here, I'm going in with a white Posca marker just to add a little bit of shine to the balloons to make them look a little bit more realistic looking, but you know, I'm not using shading, so it's still pretty flat looking, and I really like how that came out, and it's very different to my normal style, as I usually use a lot of shading and texture in my work, especially when I'm doing digital work, but this is fun to try something new. I don't get to use Posca markers very often, so it's fun to get in there and use them. Grass, I was kind of debating whether or not to use this turquoisey colour to complement the rest of the colour in the illustrations, or whether I should use like a more standard green like the grass is in the game, but in the end I decided that I would work better and bring all the colours together really well if the turquoise was the same as the rest of the picture, so I didn't really want to bring in another green. But I am happy that I did do this, as it ended up working really well, and then I did have the darker green to go over the bit of grass on the cliff tops, so that worked too, and I'm kind of glad that I ended up going that route, because I think using like a standard green, grass green, would have probably ruined it and wouldn't have worked as well. So when I was bringing in the brown, I was a little bit nervous about that, because obviously that is kind of away from the rest of my colours that I'd used so far, but I think it worked well and it was needed, and I don't think there's anything wrong in bringing an extra colour that's just used for like a big area like that, but it wasn't something I was happy about doing, but you know, I had a good result with it in the end. I did find that my brown marker was a little bit dry. I didn't think Posca markers could dry out like it did. I mean, I managed to get enough ink out of it in the end anyway, but I haven't had this brown marker for very long, probably about a year or so, and it's already quite dry. So if anyone has any tips on how to make it less dry, please let me know in the comments, as I really want to be able to save them, and I don't want them to go to waste if I can't help it. Then when it came to colouring in the house, I realised I would again need to introduce more colours to it, and I ended up using this kind of peachy colour to colour in the cliffs, which, you know, it was quite a neutral colour and quite pale, so I don't think it really takes away too much from the other colours, so thankfully it did work. So I did in the end decide that's what colour I would use to paint the house with. Along with this blue marker that I'm currently using, I decided to use that in the house as well. Did want to avoid doing outlines on this piece, but I felt like that the fence really desperately needed it because you couldn't really see the fence that obviously, and it needed bringing out in some way or shape or form, and I figured that, you know, going around it in a blue marker would work well, and it would complement it. So in the end I decided to add in these little stars and shapes into the ground just to bring in more of that blue colour into the piece, and I also used the same colour for the balloons bit of string. So you know, even though I am bringing in a little bit more colours than I had originally planned, it's still fine, and it still all kind of goes together and works together. As you can see, I'm kind of like hatching with the lines here for that bit of the house. The reason for that was because, again, I didn't want to colour it in fully blue, but I didn't want to bring another colour into the illustration. So I just thought, you know, just draw some lines in it, make it look a little bit shaded, so at least the colours are still there and I'm not introducing any new colours into the piece. And here you can see that I am now going through the house. I'm painting the walls first, using the creamy peachy kind of colour, and I think that did work well with the house. The house in the photo from, you know, my Animal Crossing game was kind of a similar colour to this. It was the closest match, so I think that was the best choice for it, and it meant that I could make the rest of the house really bold and bright, like the roof and the paneling and the door and things like that. So I do think that ended up working quite well in the end. The door I've got on my house in the game is a really nice kind of pastel-y turquoise colour, a lot paler than the colour I'm currently using, and I really wanted to keep that in, but I didn't have another pale turquoisey colour, so, you know, in the end I stuck with the colour scheme and went for the brighter turquoise, and I'm really happy with how it came out. It wasn't quite exactly what I'd wanted, but I don't think I'd have it any other way really, and it works so much better being the bright bold colour. And then when it got onto the pink colour for the house panels, I was so excited because it's such a nice pink. It's a really nice Posca pink, quite different. I haven't been able to find it in other sizes. I've only got it in the smaller size, but it works really well with all the colours, and it really brings the house out on the page and it makes it look so much more exciting. One of the things I was a little bit worried about was how I would approach the roof, but in the end I just figured, you know, I'd do a kind of like a patchworky look to it and use all the different colours. In the game it's actually kind of like a grey browny colour, but I think this works so much better, and again it brings all the colours together. So I've now finished. I'm just peeling off the washi tape to reveal the final piece. I just love those sharp crisp lines I left behind. So here you go. So it's been a few days since I've come back to my sketchbook. I've been very busy. I've had a lot of shop orders, which I'm so grateful for. Thank you if you've ordered from my shop. But I've been super busy packing all of them and making them too. So I haven't really been able to spend the time in my sketchbook that I wanted to. But I'm back, and I'm gonna start doing another illustration. So this one is gonna be another Animal Crossing inspired piece. This time I'm going with a kind of dinosaur theme, which is probably gonna sound weird considering Animal Crossing technically doesn't have dinosaurs. But I'm going to be using the Animal Crossing trees, and obviously if you've played the game you will know there are fossils of dinosaurs in the game, so this is kind of before the animals were on the earth and it was just dinosaurs, so that's kind of what I was going for it. I'm going to use a mixture of Poscas and gouache again to kind of do a mixed media piece like the last one I did. So let's go and get started on it. My dinosaur piece, I ended up deciding to use two colours of gouache, this pastel bluey colour and pastel green colour. The reason for that was just because I wanted it to be more of a pastel colour for the background and it had a lot of area to colour. So, you know, I had to use two colours rather than just the one this time, especially since this page is kind of split into two pieces, like the ground and then the sky. I wanted a bit more of a separation there, so I didn't end up using, you know, the green for the whole piece. I needed to keep it separate because I have the pterodactyl dinosaur in the sky, so that was really important that you could tell the difference between the ground and the sky, and I didn't want to, you know, make them the same color because of that reason mostly, and just to make it a little bit more different to the last piece, which was obviously completely all pink. So this makes it a little bit more different, and just a little bit more fun to experiment, as I had to use new colours and pick different colours up for this piece, especially though since this piece had a lot more kind of going on with it. Like, there's a lot more happening in the scene. There's 3 dinosaurs, there's 2 trees, there's lots of different things going on, like, you know, one dinosaur's flying, the other one's sitting on the floor, so I think this one did need a lot more colour put into it. So with this pterodactyl, I was originally wanting to go for the same kind of look as I did with the house, and I wanted there to be no outlines. However, I really struggled to get the colours right. The purple was just all kind of blending in too much with each other, and you couldn't see where the legs and the arms and stuff started, and the wings. So it was better to go over it with a blue marker in the end. I'm kind of annoyed that I had to do that, but it just made it so much better, and it would have looked a little bit silly if I hadn't, and the dinosaur would have just disappeared into the background. So, you know, it worked out in the end. I did find for some reason that my marker was going a bit blotchy. The ink was just coming out really quickly out of the pen for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was pressing too hard, but I wasn't getting quite as a sharp edge as I was getting in the previous piece. I don't know why that happened, but it did. It's kind of annoying. I'm not sure if I'm just using the pen wrong, or if it's that I'm painting on paint already. Maybe that's made a difference and it's affecting the kind of consistency of the paint, but it was very watery. I don't know why that is. If you know why that is, please let me know down in the comments below, because I'd really like to stop that in future, because it was super annoying having to wipe my pen down all the time. I feel like in this piece, I kind of went a bit more wild with the colours. I just kind of, you know, I put down the colours that I felt was right for that piece and that place, but, you know, it wasn't as put together as the house illustration, if that makes sense, but no ways any worse. So I wanted the dinosaurs to all be different colours. I didn't want them to be the same. I wanted them all to have their own individual look to them. So, you know, I wanted a green one, a blue one, and a pink one, which is why I'm now colouring this one in pink. I used the darker Posca marker to add some kind of shadows to her legs, so the colours weren't kind of blurring together, and I think that ended up working really well. And then for contrast, I ended up using the turquoise colour to put on some spots on her, and I think that's just a really fun little pattern dinosaur, quite quirky and just a little bit silly, and, you know, fun. This piece I probably didn't put as much thought as I did with the first one, though I think with the idea I probably put a little bit more into it than I did previously. And you can see this little guy is eating the leaves on this tree, so I had to go in and colour in the leaves. I did the same kind of thing I did for the house. I decided that I was going to do a patchwork leaves, so each leaf was going to be a different colour, and I was going to try and make sure that they weren't each touching each other. This was a little bit harder to do as I only had 3 greens that I could use, so in the end I did go in with my blue marker, and it ended up like kind of blocking in the gaps to help with that, and you know, it did work. It worked for me. As you can, well, right now I'm, you know, colouring in the outline of the dinosaur, but yeah, I kind of went all over the place when I was colouring this piece. I didn't just stay in one place. Painting in the tree leaves was a little bit boring at times, so I did take a little bit of a break to go and do other bits of the illustration. I definitely think the trees kind of still have that Animal Crossing look to them. The colours make them a little bit different to what they do look like in game, so I think that kind of separates them a little bit and makes them not look super obvious that they're from Animal Crossing, but it's still got that kind of look there, if you know what you're looking for and you've played the game before. So the trees were kind of hard to decide what colours they should have been. So in the end I ended up going for yellow, which probably sounds like a weird choice as the trees are kind of brownish, but you can see a little bit of yellow in them. So I thought yellow would work well with some brown rings, you know, typical Animal Crossing tree looking style with the rings. So I think that did work. I think I probably need to get some other shade of brown. I'm not sure if Posca do a lighter brown, but that's something I definitely think I need to look into because I can't really use yellow as a brown all the time. It worked well for this piece because it was a lot of bright colours and it, you know, was just a fun, simple piece, but I think I need to look into getting more shades of brown if that is possible. We'll see. These white clouds were kind of a bit of a pain to do. I had to do several coats on them, but I guess that's expected since I was painting over gouache. That was obviously darker than the white, but I didn't go over them too much to kind of still give them a bit of a see-through, transparent, translucent kind of look to them, so they looked really nice and fluffy, and you know, they weren't just pure white. There was a little bit of other blue seeping through them, which I guess is pretty realistic, really. I was debating whether or not I should outline the trees. In the end I decided not to because I wanted the dinosaurs to be the main focus of this illustration, so I think I made the right choice in the end. I didn't want the trees to take away from the dinosaurs, and I also didn't really want to go around every single leaf as well. That would have been a pain. Or I could have just outlined just the stumps, but then I think that would have looked strange if I hadn't outlined the leaves as well. So in the end, I did just keep it to just the dinosaurs, which made it a bit easier for me, which is probably a little bit naughty and kind of cheating and lazy of me. But, you know, I do want to make sure that you can see the dinosaurs, and I feel like adding the blue outline to everything would have just been way too much, and that wasn't something I did to the house illustration, so I kind of want to keep them sort of similar in that kind of way. I mean, the house illustration obviously didn't have any animals in it, so I could use a lot more flat colours in it because they didn't need to stand out as much, but I still did use some outlines in there, so I think just keeping it to the dinosaur works well and matches the original one, I think. Let me know if you think I should go back in and outline them. I'm still not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep it how it is. We'll see, maybe. One of the things I love about Posca markers is how easy it is just to go over colours you've already done. So if you make a mistake, or if you want to colour something in a solid colour just because it's easier, you can then go and apply a different colour on top of it, and you can even do it if it's a paler colour, if the second colour is paler than the first colour, and I think that's really good because it just means, you know, you can fix mistakes and you can change things as you go. You can try different things out. So if you put a colour down somewhere and you decide you don't like it, you can just go over the top of it with the original colour, and you can't really tell. You might need to put several coats down depending on the shades, but you can't tell, and I think that's really good. It's, you know, it's a great way to kind of experiment, and you can change things without being too worried about it, which you can't do with some media. Like, you can't do that with watercolour or with inks. You know, it's kind of permanent, and you might be able to put more colour over the top of it, but you still won't be able to hide that it was, you know, the original colour wasn't there, if that makes sense. You can still kind of see it. But Posca markers are great because that isn't an issue. By the end of this piece, I was kind of regretting deciding to do all these individual leaves because the first tree took me ages to do, and then, you know, I just had to go and do it again. And this time I also had cherries to work around too, so there was a little bit more to this tree than the first one. But, you know, it looks good in the end. It did look good in the end, so at least it was worth the effort. But, you know, filling in lots of tiny little small gaps over and over again can kind of get a little bit boring sometimes. Let me know if you feel like that too in the comments. I think I'm just a little bit, I find when I'm doing an illustration, I think I have the idea in my head and I just want it to be done really quickly. And unfortunately, you know, that's not the case. You do have to do it. Some big pieces are really fun to do. Like if you have a big space to colour in, I'm fine with that. But sometimes the little details, when they're really, really small, they can get a little bit annoying. Especially when you're using a big marker, it can be a bit of a pain because it's harder to get accurate detail in there and you want to keep it looking good, and it's really annoying when you're using a marker that's about the same size as the thing you're drawing, and you're even drawing like even smaller parts, if that makes sense. So it's just harder to get it as precise as you'd like it, so you have to be really, really careful when using bigger markers in smaller spaces. I mean, that was probably one of the reasons I decided not to go around the leaves with the blue marker. Even though the blue marker is a thin one, it's a little bit funny at the moment because it's, you know, spreading ink everywhere. But yeah, at least I got it done. I finished it finally. And I took the washi tape off to really nice, lovely, crisp lines. Washi tape is so good for this, and luckily none of the pages were ripped when I was taking it off. So here is the final dinosaur piece. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. It's been a long time since I've sat down and done some stuff in my sketchbook, and a while since I've done a sketchbook session for you guys as well. So I hope you have enjoyed it. These two pieces ended up being a little bit Animal Crossing themed, but I'm really happy with them and I think they're really cute. A little bit different to my normal style, but you know, Posca markers do make your artwork look quite different to your normal style. But I'm really happy with them, and I definitely think I need to use Posca markers more often because they're so fun and easy to use, and I like the bold lines you can get with them. So that's definitely something I'm going to try and use some more in this new sketchbook. If you like this video, please give it a massive thumbs up and leave a comment below telling me which was your favourite illustration, the dinosaur one or the house illustration. I think mine was probably the house, but let me know what your favourite one was in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll be the first to be notified for when I next upload. And that's something you definitely should do because next week's videos is going to be a big one. I'm really excited to share this with you guys. I have to start working on it pretty much immediately once this video has gone up, but I'm super excited about it, and I'm going to be bringing lots of new products to you guys and showing you off some new things I've recently got, so look forward to that. Don't forget to check out all my social medias, which are linked down below in the description, including my Patreon, where you can subscribe and get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else from me, including a set of postcards and stickers sent to you each month. And please don't forget to follow me on Instagram as well. Instagram's algorithm has been really weird for me recently, so it'd mean a lot if you could go and like my posts and support me over there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!